we are the anti-system. By definition, there is a system that made us collapse, and there is the anti-system. Now, it is by definition an anti-system, so it is not organized yet. Mm-hmm. It's not a system that is against a system. It is an anti-system that is against a system, and this is why I've been working very hard to turn this anti-system into a new system, into a new order.
I appreciate that framing, but I'm going to ask you up front, would you consider your role earlier? Let's go back to 2018 or even earlier. Was it an anti-system perspective back then, or has that changed?
No, it was. To tell you the truth, remember, I'm not I would say, a professional in a sense that is understood in Lebanon, a professional politician. It's not my profession. This is why you are here.
Yeah.
As you said earlier, this is what I do in life.
You wear normal clothes.
Exactly.
You look more normal than I do today. I came a little too much.
No, but to tell you the truth, this is not really what makes me normal. Okay. What makes me normal is that I wake up in the morning, try to create value. Our politicians do not wake up in the morning trying to create value. Mm-hmm. They try to mess around and try to optimize on their own small nitty-gritty gaming. Yeah. This is what created the collapse of Lebanon. In all fairness, what created the collapse of Lebanon is that for 20 years, our leadership was not able to create any value. They were only fighting among each other, and actually not even fighting. They converted their fighting into how do we split the cakes between each other without thinking of how to increase the size of the cake. And this is why the systemic flow could not but end in this huge, it's a multi-level bankruptcy. It's not a state financial bankruptcy. It is an institutional complete collapse. It is a state bankruptcy. It is people bankruptcy because they created everybody intertwined everything together and they made it all collapse. Having said that, I saw this 2011.
Let me go then a bit before 2018, because
yes.
I like that you're able to reflect, and it's very important what you mentioned, is that you're not a full-time politician. You're not a career politician.
And now I started to become, lately, in the last 6 months and 1 year, when I said to myself, I cannot protect anymore my ecosystem if we don't fix the country. The country is collapsing.
Well, then let me play gently as a devil's advocate. It may not be what I think of, but I hear these voices consistently, and they're not fringe voices, they're mainstream. Why would someone today, who's given an option of who to choose, favor a politician, albeit briefly, who served in a previous parliament in 2018, not a full-time member, or not even a full member of Tayyar Watani Hur, but in the same list, in the same alliance? Why would someone be able to accept that transition? And I'm not speaking on behalf of the reformers that we both know, and I think a lot of them we see daily, if not, we talk to them all the time. The more skeptical, reluctant protester turned politician, or for that matter, voter, who still does not see the winning ticket as anyone who served in earlier administrations. How can you persuade them?
Very easy, very easy. I would look at it differently. I would ask them, how can you vote for somebody that's not tested? At least, people like, I don't want to be selling myself here. I just want you to know that think back in 2018. Those that did not move when the boat was sinking and stayed home, enjoying their life, putting their money in the banks and enjoying the 17% interest rate, the rape of the economic system in Lebanon, which means they wanted and they were enjoying making money without working, whereas people were working day and night like us, creating, and we were suffering as the largest employer of Lebanon and creating value every day. When the banks started to take the 12% interest rate on the dollars, not on the Lebanese pound.
Yeah.
For us, it was like telling us, stop working, stop investing, Just put your money and enjoy the sunshine of Lebanon.
Yeah.
And this is what we refused. More importantly,
You refused as an
investor.
As an investor, not as a
As an investor.
Yeah.
And then as a activist, let's put it like this.
Yeah.
I said to myself, if I stay home, those bastards, are going to collapse everything in Lebanon. I saw the black hole coming.
And this is before
Swelling.
the resignation. Before
No. That was before I entered parliament.
Before you entered
2017.
parliament. Oh, I see.
saw myself.
Yeah.
I saw exactly let me tell you why I am today doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because in 2011, I was head of the Industrial Association.
Yes.
I saw that this country is going to bankruptcy because it was very clear for 10 years we were growing, our economy was growing at 1%, and our debt was growing at 7% every year. We were not creating anything. We were we were rewarding not doing anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And this told me that we cannot continue. I tried to steer the ship outside using my own connection. I couldn't. 2017, I said I have to enter straight inside to turn it around because otherwise it's going to collapse on our heads.
Now, can I interrupt gently
Yes.
here again? I'm sorry, I'm doing
No,
this
no, no,
deliberately.
no.
I take liberty in being able to do this.
Please.
I've had episodes with people in a familiar situation, and that includes Ziad Baroud, who, if I'm not mistaken, officially announced that he's not running, or
Yes. He
he's decided not to.
Yeah.
I sense that there is a problem for independence with
To affect events.
to affect events before and after October 17. And the reason I'm going back in time is because there's a name recognition when it comes to someone like Ziad Baroud, who's more or less friendly with civil society, came from civil society, entered politics, tried running in 2018 as an MP, did not
He was
succeed.
with me. He was with me.
Yeah.
I made it. He did not. That's the only difference.
And I think it's that wiggle space of getting sucked into something bigger, which is the unpopularity of any ticket that was in the regime and is still in the regime. That could be the Free Patriotic Movement, it could be any party. That there's some baggage added to the independence today. And I'm wondering, how can you address that baggage?
If you give me,
Yeah, of course, sorry.
This is what I'm trying to do.
Sure.
This is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do.
I should learn to shut up.
Yeah, no, but really, because I want you to live this journey.
Yes.
Because it's a journey. It's not a moment. It's unfair to look at it as a moment.
Yeah.
Because if you can look at it when I resigned, which is great, okay, everybody was happy. Or now I'm running, or before I run. You should look at it as a journey. You have to understand that every person that saw the collapse coming and stayed home in 2017 is a traitor.
Stayed home meaning did not
run.
Yeah.
Is a traitor.
This includes the Kuluna Watani crowd. This includes everyone.
That
anyone.
includes every person that was giving ideas and staying home.
Right.
This boat is going down the drain. People that like me that saw it, and others like me that saw it and decided to do everything to change it. We have two ways to change things. First, you can hack the system. Secondly, you can destroy the system. We tried to hack it.
In 2018.
Yes. We entered inside and said, guys, we're coming inside to try to change this thing. This is why I was free, independent at that time. We ran under a name called Al-Insan Awalan.
Right, yes.
People first.
Yeah. Which is actually nice. I'm entering this building. I see the signs from...
Yeah. This is the idea. This was the project that made me go and say, let's reverse things. Our people are going to go down the drain and collapse. You have to change and stop this game of splitting the cakes between you guys. And I made it a condition that I became the head, the chair of the Economic and Planning Committee of the Parliament to try to change things.
Yeah.
This is where I discovered insight, and this is my discovery, that with 39, this block was a huge block, like more than 30, 29 if I recall well, MPs. Supposedly I should be able to affect things.
Right.
Okay, I understood that I could not. I resigned from the bloc. Then after the explosion of Beirut,
Yes.
I said we cannot anymore waste any minute with this leadership. We have to collapse it.
I think you resigned 5 days after.
I was the first to resign.
You were the first to resign.
So we resigned, and this is when I said, okay, now we have to rebuild everything from outside. We are going to take the toughest route.
Mm-hmm.
There was a faster route. Was to change from inside, which is have the vote of a parliament, of a new plan, of a new system change, of a new leadership that will come after the elections. We could not. We had to collapse. And I tell you, I discovered that with this leadership, and this is what I would like to tell you, what I discovered and share with the people. I always thought, Ronnie, I swear, I always thought in the last 15 years that we have a system deficiency in Lebanon. I discovered after my experience, my 2 years into parliament experience, that we have a problem with the system, but the biggest problem is with the leadership quality of Lebanon. So the leadership quality of Lebanon, because they are coming from the civil war, they changed their clothes after the civil war, shaved, and went into politics. Warlords. This is the real issue.
I'd like to push as far as I can.
Yes.
And I do this out of respect for somebody still believing that change can happen this way. And I subscribe myself to reform from within rather than throwing the whole thing away. I believe in small steps. Even when small steps look so bleak, I still think Lebanon is an old idea, it's an old experiment, and it still deserves its chance. And I think reform is the way forward. And that umbrella should include anyone who's willing to reform, whether they've been in parliament before, whether they participated in the civil war. I think reform is necessary in everyone and every party. That said, I don't see fundamental circumstances changing.
I agree with you.
And sorry,
except one thing.
Well, but when you said leadership, and I assume by leadership you meant more in the communal leaders that emerged in the 80s and the 90s that are still with us today.
Yes.
I think of their destiny as either absolute failure or needing to reform, and they don't think they have any other choice.
They missed the train of reform.
That said, the conditions that kept that crowd around, I don't think have gone. And these are conditions that may be beyond Lebanon's control. So how would someone like you, who still is trying, you're losing time and effort and space and probably...
And energy.
And energy.
We're dying, man.
Yeah,
we are dying day and night.
You're spending...
We're living our life, our work, our families.
Right.
Because we decided to climb Mount Everest.
But in that climb,
yes.
If the conditions have not fundamentally changed for reformers,
yes,
why would your chances at winning, or let's say your victory, change anything?
Yes, because first of all, there is faith in life. Faith doesn't work on probability. Faith with 0.01%, you can turn it into 100%. I have faith that if we do the right thing ourselves, the stars will align and save us. I believe that we have to come up with a clear, and we came out. This is why when I left the parliament, I resigned.
Yeah.
I came back as a candidate, not as a person, but as a project. We called it projectwatan.com.
Yeah.
Why I'm saying I have something new on the table now?
Yeah.
Because I'm answering the problem with a project, not with anger, not with chaos, not with reaction, but with an action. The action is the following. I know that we have an issue in our operating system in Lebanon. I have also discovered that we have a deeper problem, which was the cause of having such a weak immunity in Lebanon. Every problem in the Middle East and the world, we attract the virus. We attract the viruses here because we have a real deficiency in our national contract, the deep national contract of the formation of Lebanon. This is where we went and we tried to fix it, and then we discovered while we are doing it, and this is all in a forum called Project Watan.
Yes. Yeah.
We found that we have an issue called Lebanon as a nation state. And we think that we don't have a nation state, but we can have a state. And this is where the problem is. If you don't have a nation state, the alternative is very clear. We're not inventing it. Is to have a service state. And this is where we started to work and came out with all our project to come back to Lebanon in a very
that's the
clear
other
way.
podcast trying to get you.
Yes, and a very clear plan to say to ourselves, if we go and identify a new problem in Lebanon, a new front, a new Cold War, a new kind of war, and we identify it, we said it's not Christian against Muslim, it's not Sunni against Shia, it is we call it al-manzuma, or the system, the system. I think manzuma is the system, basically. It is those 5-6 political leadership that stayed 20 years with each other, that basically the political establishment of Lebanon invaded the administrative ecosystem of Lebanon. So the 250,000 employees of the public sector are today all politicized and are became at the end of the day, and lately even to parliament, even the judiciary system, as you see, they ended up being politicized to such an extent, the zero value creation.
Well, then let me frame it in a slightly different way, and let's assume this is trying to persuade the reluctant voter to still believe that there's a chance at change. The fundamental issues, which I think you hinted at, and I like your reference to operating system and viruses. I can see it as a very slow, sluggish computer. There is a virus that is particularly not Lebanese in that, and I think you echoed it in a way, that this country is still paying a huge price for not being the kind of country we aspire to. And I mean, the issue is discussed 24 hours a day, and that's the issue of something like Hezbollah, but not only Hezbollah. The way that this group can circumvent the state or maybe paralyze it. I don't understand why a reformer would be able to make fundamental change so long as that type of issue is beyond reformers. And I'll say it in a different way. March 14, whether you like it or not, whatever someone thinks today of March 14, I think it has a lot of baggage. There were majority victories in parliament in 2 elections, in 2005 and 2009. A majority win that could not even yield an opposition-like pressure against anything. I'm assuming this time around, it will not be a majority October 17. It'll be a solid minority, and there will be a healthy bloc that is trying to hold the regime to account. I don't think anyone can do much about that existential issue, whether they're accepting it or fighting it. So why should we trust somebody in parliament who has the noble goal of change, but still cannot address something so fundamental, like what Hezbollah represents right now? And I don't want to make it about them. I want to make it about the fundamentals of a nation state you described, or the fundamentals of a country that can actually lead its own destiny.
Look, I want you to go with me on the search of answer for this. The path that I did, me and my colleagues, when we decided to form like a group of multi-sectarian people that comes from a different backgrounds, that wants to look at it as a problem, as a technical issue. How do we convert such a failure into something that is success? So we took it as back to my experience, which is I do turnarounds for companies that are going down the drain. So I look at it as a big multinational, as a big group, as a big company.
That's a fantastic description.
That needs to turn around.
Yeah.
So that is a checklist that we do.
Yeah.
This is why when I came to the parliament, first question I asked, how many employees do we have in the public sector? And so anyway,
which the number I'm assuming is bloated to the point that
if we open the subject, it will take the whole thing. We can talk about it later, because I discovered a lot of things and I have answers. Anyway, so I went. So when you look at a company or at an organization, let's put it like this, or a body. In this case, it's a body called Lebanon. And for us, Lebanon is dying as we speak. And we said to ourselves, how do we resurrect it? And then there is a checklist for that. So you have to start by defining, first of all, what is the mission of this country? What is the vision? What is the objective? What is the structure of such a thing? And this is how we ended up saying, we have to answer 8 questions. We came out to that, and we can talk about it now.
This is on the website, I believe.
Yes.
I looked at it. I'll include it in the episode.
Yes.
So you laid it out step by step.
And we are answering them, and we said to ourselves, if we are able to answer those questions and turn them into laws, new laws into parliament, because we are still believing that this country is a democratic country. And this is where the way you are putting it is saying, Man Ahmad, you're playing by the book of democracy and there is no democracy. This is what you are referring to.
Slightly differently. I'll give you one quick example. Tariq Bitar has been without a portfolio to work with in over 6 months or approaching 6 months.
Yes.
Not because of sectarianism, or not because of the way Lebanon is built. It's the bigger problem that he cannot address, that none of us can address.
Yes.
So that type of issue which prevents him from doing his work, I don't imagine it changing even if you change parliament.
I don't think so. I think we can. Let me tell you, I believe that just in case, let's assume, this is where faith come in. Let's assume for the fact that people believes us. That people believe, every single person that's hearing me today believes that we can change things by having 15 to 20 new laws into parliament that can rebuild the deep state of Lebanon. And by me, I look at deep state as a positive thing, not as a negative thing here. Because the political state in Lebanon is worse than the deep state of the deep of the deepest state. So can we rebuild basically the public administration of Lebanon,
or the institutions,
and the public administration of Lebanon, in a way that they are free from the political establishment? If you are able, and if you believe me, you as a voter today, that with 20 new laws that we are writing now, we can free and rebuild the institutions of Lebanon to serve the people of Lebanon, and put a fence between the public administration and the political system in Lebanon, and have a new party, if you want, or a bloc into parliament that do not want to play by the book of the parties. He wants to free the public administration from the parties. This is a new way of looking at things. If you have enough people, and in all fairness, if you can have 500,000 to 600,000 voters believe in this, you can turn this faith and belief into something, into a huge success. So it all starts with belief. If you believe that you can succeed, we can succeed. If you believe that we will fail, it will become a self-prophecy and you will fail. So this is what makes me, this is why I'm telling you, I have something inside me. If I do my job right, if you do your job right, if everyone in this 17th of October anti-system whirlpool, because it is what it is now, if we do our job right in good faith, without the ego that comes with political establishments and political gaming, we will build a new country. It's as simple as that. Back to your original question regarding somebody that was into parliament and resigned after 2 years, compared to a new version, politically version player. You like it? Well, I
want them to keep their virginity.
Yes. Well, I tell you, I am more at ease. In all fairness, I'm more at ease. And now as an analyst, not analyzing myself, but as an analyst.
Sure.
But not talking as a person that's concerned, but as an analyst.
Yeah.
I prefer somebody that is tested and had the abnegation, the level of immunity and abnegation and self-control to say, I'm out because I don't believe in this, then of a newcomer that I don't know if he was offered a Mercedes car after 1 week of being a parliamentarian. He will jump ship, and shift board.
There's something
Who tells you that every single person is telling you, I mean you, he is the right, he is not worse than what we have.
No, the background of what you're saying, I think it resonates with me in that reformers exist in age, exist throughout political parties.
Yes.
There are new reformers that want to enter parliament. There are old reformers that couldn't before and are trying again.
Yes.
There are some career politicians among them too. Some come from families that are well established in politics, and I mean, I think everyone should be given that chance to reform. But that said, in at least the current lineup that we live under, I'm willing to extend a hand. Say there's a party, for example, that doesn't really match the way I see Lebanon, or it's not my views necessarily, the Syrian Socialist Nationalist Party. He may not be a member of that party, but he's at least designated by them. And that's Saad al-Shami, who's the current deputy prime minister. I think of him as a reformer, or at least what you can come closest to as a technocrat, meaning he's a numbers guy. He's been hired to do the biggest job in this country's current mess, which is an IMF deal. He's from the IMF, and I don't really think of him as a politician.
No, he's not.
I think of him as someone as a careful accountant who's trying to do the right thing, coming from a party that is not known for reform or not really trusted by anyone October 17. So that's why I'm willing to extend it as far as possible. But even someone like him cannot get the IMF deal done.
For sure, because he's in the wrong place. He is in the cabinet, whereas the power is at the parliament. We have to have majority in the parliament for people that will create the required air cover for people like Mr. Shami to be able to work from the cabinet.
You think
this is how Lebanon functions?
His mission would be easier if he had a
for
larger.
Sure. I have seen the cabinet of the previous cabinet, Diab.
Yes.
They had good people also. Look, I was in the parliament.
Yeah.
Look, they were going there like lame ducks. The way they were behaving with them is, you cannot accept it. I couldn't believe that what I was hearing. How were they able to stay in the room? Actually, they were shouted at. They were messed with their dignity, and because they had no air cover.
But that kind of duality, where the parliament is going to be probably a minority opposition, backed by October 17 friendly names, and a cabinet that could potentially reflect some of that.
Yeah.
I would go the other direction as well. The party that is not in October 17, not considered part of this uprising movement, the Lebanese forces. Their slogans are all over the highway. Their message is clear. What they are seeking, it's well understood. But even if they gained votes in parliament, which probably will happen, I don't think the issue of sovereignty or a disarmament of the last militia in this country I don't think it matches anything that they can do in parliament. I think it's completely out of their control. So even that group, which portrays itself as reformist, even when most reformers don't think of it as that, they cannot get far either. So I'm trying to understand, why would parliament pave the way for genuine reform to last in Lebanon? I still see that missing step.
Yeah, I like the way you're putting it. Let me tell you. First of all, there are necessary conditions, and there are sufficient conditions. This is a necessary conditions for me, but not a sufficient one. It's important to have parliament as much as we can, that starts to look like the reformist. And you don't need to be 51% of reformists in the parliament. You can have an embryo that is working with people like the Lebanese forces on this topic, on other topic, on the new operating system of Lebanon, if you want to call it operating system. On third one, on the neutrality of Lebanon, which is a stability. Because I defined the problem in three spheres, three planes. One is this issue of sovereignty, which is essential. The second is the issue of the operating system and the value creation of the system, and how do we turn it into a real system that create value and services for the people, not at the mercy of the politician. This is a huge chapter. And the third one is the stability of the system, long term. And this is where neutrality plays a role.
Absolutely.
Okay, so at these three layers, the reformist has different partners. In every plane, we have different partners. This is on one. This is in the parliament, but it's not enough. We need to have enough. There is in this election, there are two things at the same time going on. The first is a normal election to gain seats into parliament, but the second is as equally important, even more important. It is the census. It is a real polling of the real will of the Lebanese, those that can express, and this because the international community and all the observers in the world will adjust, will calibrate the results, function to the real the circumstances.
The inner scientist is coming out.
Exactly. You can adjust for the bias of the experiment. Okay, and look at what does the Lebanese really want. And what do they, more than want, what do they deserve? Because maybe, and I'm very worried, and this is why I'm very happy with our discussion today. So people are all around the world are watching us, your friends, and you told me you had a lot of listeners. I'm telling you guys, what is at stake here is to see if the Lebanese deserve a country of their own or not. The question is as dangerous as this. If we do not succeed this huge test today, trust me, we will be looked at as a country that need a babysitter, and they will be looking for a babysitter for us to take care of us. Because everybody is saying, when we were on our own, for the 10, 15 years that they think that we were on our own, but we were not.
You're referring to which 15 years?
Now, after the Syrian...
2005 until...
Yes. The garbage went out of our ears. Literally. We were not able to remove our garbage from the streets. And this is where we want to prove to everybody, no, we were not on our own. We had a flow from within, and we want to correct it.
I agree with everything you're saying.
Yes.
I think there's very little to disagree with in the way you're dissecting what feels like a Lebanon that should have prospered and instead collapsed. I completely agree. But I'll try to offer an analogy. What you're describing, I think, is the similar aspiration that took many Lebanese to the streets many times, in that you have protests that want fundamental change. And going back a bit, I know they're not thought of the same way now, but in 2005, most Lebanese political parties that still exist today, the majority, signed up for something like March 14. Even though that ended quickly, even though it divided quickly, even though you had an opposition early on, and then you had this unity that looked terrible in 2005. All of that aside, there were a lot of MPs that were reform-minded from the old parties that entered parliament. My memory of the years thereafter was every time an MP tried to do a little more than they were tasked with, they were hiding in a hotel, or they were sent home.
Yes, sir.
Or for that matter, even a prime minister who's, let's say, unpopular at best, was deemed illegitimate for a year and a half. You had ministers that could not get far with their jobs out of real fear, and you had a climate that did not encourage reform. The climate, in my opinion, has gotten worse for reformers.
Yes.
Not better. The aspiration for reform has gone up.
Yes.
But the paralysis has gotten worse.
Agreed.
So why would a reformer be able to escape that nightmare better today?
First of all, because I'm telling you that today we have a litmus test as we speak. This polling, this election is a test. If we do we deserve, if the problem was we want to prove with the results of the polls, not the election. Because this election is like a referendum.
Right.
In places where we assume that it's free enough. To say that the problems that we had before, the garbage in the streets, the work that was not done, the failure that we had was due because we are good. We had good people, but we were hostages, and we were being killed. And you know better than everybody about that. And the fault is not ours.
Exactly, it's not the fault. Yeah.
So if we don't succeed this election in places where we're supposed to succeed, I'm very much worried that everybody will say, "Man, the fault is from within. It's really they don't deserve. They don't know better." This is why this election is very important. This is why I'm asking for every voter to think twice. It's the time. Now is the time to tell everybody that we deserve a country. We have to prove to the world that we have a vision of a Lebanon that functions, of a Lebanon that still looks like what you and me look like.
I like the terminology that you're using.
Yes.
And I like the faith you're holding on to, and I like the hope that's built into this conversation. The most recent episode I had was with Neji Abu Khalil. He's the political director of Kitl al-Watani. And he said something that I thought of since, which is the expectations for massive victory are not there, in that there will be some names that enter. Some of them are probably going to be names like yourself, which are familiar enough names. They're not brand new. The chances of a huge minority is not that big, but there will be a minority bloc. The way he described it is that even that is a success story for October 17, because it can apply pressure, and it can be a pressure point for reform. Do you see it that way as well, that would be deemed a victory? Even though it's scaled down, even though it's not what October 17 protesters thought of, but a new type of pressure within Parliament would be a justified victory for at least someone like you.
Yes and no. If it's not what we get only in the Parliament that's important. It's what we do the first 100 days. Would we be able to have a bloc that has an internal system from within, an internal Politburo inside, if you want, that will be producing those reform plans, reform laws, and become like the conscious of the Parliament? What will we do the first 100 days regarding the Speaker of the House? What are we going to do about all of these things? Will we face those in unity? Do we know how to build the right alliance inside? Remember, this wolves start to eat each other in wintertime. If we know how to play our cards, they will eat each other, and we will not eat each other if we are not wolves. If we know how to organize ourselves. So the first 100 days. I will tell you if we have succeeded or not. If we know how to act.
That's a healthy way of looking at it. So 3 months of work, which in itself is a litmus test on the opposition.
Yes.
And whether the population sees that as a success or not. And I like what you said earlier, that you can work with other parties on different agendas.
On those 3 planes that are defined. All of this is part of Project Watan plan. So we have it written, we have it, we are preparing those, and I tell you, I wanted to campaign. If the election is we don't have time now to make the whole campaign on this. But we wanted to campaign on the first 100 days after election. That was part of our campaign, and we will be using it in the coming months.
I'm going to include the website, and I think that's a nice title for the episode as well. And I want to just wrap it up. I know I took a lot of your time.
I still have a TV show today.
Okay. Well, I hope this adds some
flavor. It's a warm-up.
It's a warm-up. You mentioned something briefly once, and I liked the way you described it. In your free time, if you have any free time, your mind drifts to things that have nothing to do with this country. You mentioned quantum physics once, and then you just casually said, my father and yourself had these interesting conversations.
Beautiful. Before maybe 2 days, 3 days.
Yes,
before,
so literally around
before
Christmas.
he was assassinated.
Yeah, so what were those conversations like? Meaning, he was hell-bent on trying to find a way out of the paralysis that we're living through, and he spent his better part of his career doing that. But you're talking about other issues as well. Can you just bring to life some of that memory, some of those conversations?
It was a dinner in a place, and I discovered with your father that we had something in common that was not supposed to be there. I didn't.
Right.
It was a revelation for me. I was so happy about it. That he's into quantum physics, and it's part of his. I would say hobby. I would say his readings.
Absolutely.
And he was deep in it, and we knew a lot about it. And I so happened to be like him in this aspect, and we started to talk about it. And I understood him in one dinner so deep, because I could see why he's looking at those, and at the same time he's looking at the political problem of Lebanon.
Yeah.
Because really, in all fairness, it becomes a technical challenge, and this is Lebanon is a real chaotic system that we are trying to emerge order from it, but in the right order. And how do we affect? What are the conditions that will convert this chaos into something good? Because singularities exist. And how to use a singularity to take you where you want is a big challenge in system analysis and ecosystem control, if you want.
Yeah.
And this is where I enjoyed so much our discussion. And I could see in him really somebody like me, if you want, behind enemy lines. The political establishment is enemies for me. And I now am deployed behind enemy lines, trying to make the right change, sabotaging the political establishment to turn it into something positive. And this is probably why people like him were removed, because they create the real danger. And the silent, because they are very effective silently. Less noise, they are stealth. Now, I'm not stealth anymore, so they will not kill me, hopefully.
No, well, I mean, I'll turn this into a slightly different, I'll change the mood a bit. It's when he honed in on a central component of the virus that you described earlier, a virus that does not overtake software only, but kills the hardware too.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to understand how a reformer today could escape that fate. Because he went all the way in his assertion that Lebanon could not survive so long as something like the Syrian occupation turned into what Hezbollah dominates today, that you cannot properly reform the state if you don't overcome that biggest hurdle. And I think a true reformer today would still hit the same wall if they went all the way. And that's why I always try to understand what makes this round different.
It makes sense. Your question is very important. I say to myself, I have some complaint to make about the first round. I'm not, I'm not a 14 marcher, deep 14 marcher, because I saw some of their flaws. I didn't see enough professionalism in their work. I did not see enough. They didn't fight corruption enough. And some of their leaders are, or let's say first ranks, not leaders.
Yeah.
I don't want to judge anybody now, but the top tier people today are synonym of corruption.
I agree.
So what we need
but can I just ask you, is it fair?
2.0 and Revolution 2.0.
Sorry, before we get to
Yes.
2.0, and
Yes.
I'm taking your time. Would it be fair to at least assert that the people that you would want to still be around in March 14 were eliminated by the virus as well? Meaning, I'm drawn to somebody like Basil Fleihan and his economics.
For
me
professionals. Bravo. Probably the hit list was the professional clean.
Right.
Okay,
So in
that was the top of the hit list, and
Yeah.
they start and probably then they started to have the professionals unclean, and
Right.
I don't know if they reached the unclean, the clean, unprofessional.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
the crowd that we're left with is the crowd that survives through the virus. I still think October 17, if it's left on its own to deal with this mess, it will be a mirror reflection of the same tragedy. That you end up with the crowd that you don't really want. You end up with those that survive.
I don't want to say that every person that survived is a bad person. Let's put it like this. Maybe they didn't get to him. Maybe they didn't
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they have lost enough momentum.
Right.
They destroyed the momentum with what they did.
Which is, yeah.
But I want to say that for sure, the top of the list were the people that are clean. Really, all of them that died. The martyrs of those martyrs are, I would say, very high on the ethics and the professionalism. This is no doubt. If you want to look at what is the common denominator of between them, is this, and this is really a painful thing. This is decapitation. And Lebanon, we have a damnation in Lebanon. There is no doubt.
Yeah.
When you look at how many times we were able to make it, and then we had an inflection point.
Absolutely.
And our fate is to keep trying. And I want to end this discussion today on a positive note, and the note of hope. If we believe deeply in something, the whole world will conspire. The whole universe will conspire. This is Paulo Coelho. Huh?
I was going to say, I've heard this before.
I remember will conspire to help us to achieve our goal. Our goal, we have to define it well. Defining victory very well is the start of a victory. We have to define. This is why in Project Watan we worked so hard in defining victory. Now, if you ask me, how do you want the new Lebanon? I can tell you, I have it and written in paper. I know exactly what the new president should do in Lebanon. What sort of president do we need to have? What is the reforms needed? Not to have Ta'if that goes into the clutch of Ta'if turns on, and then we go and still we have bugs in the systems that freeze. We know what need to be done. How do you want to have the new decentralization law? We have it written. How do you want to elect the governors in Lebanon? We don't want any more assigned governors.
Yes.
We have all of, at least this is our version of the new Lebanon.
The hard work that's being put into all of these policy proposals across the spectrum, whether it's a website like Project Watan or any political party that is trying to reform from within, I think requires sincere admiration. And I appreciate the hard work you're doing. I'm going to embed the website into the episode.
Please.
And I like the way you described it. 3 months, 100 days. We'll take it from there. And if possible, maybe we can catch up then and see what happened.
Hopefully.
Neemat Frem,
Thank you.
I appreciate
you,
it. Thank you.
God bless.